Okay, you may have made a big mistake by coming onto this video because this is going to change your life. I absolutely guarantee you, by the time you finish this video, your life is going to be extremely different. Now, what you see in front of you here are mud fossils, and they've been thought to just rocks, but they're not rocks. Those are products of life, and I studied this. I found these mud fossils 5 years ago, and I was just thrilled. I couldn't believe it when I started finding them, and I do the chemistry and everything, and I called Yale, and they sort of laughed at me, and I understood this. So I said, what would it take to make this official, and they said, well, you'd have to do DNA tests and CAT scans and have chemistry and experts and all this business. And I said, well, if that pans out, then will somebody look at it? Oh, of course, okay, so good. So this goes back 4 or 5 years, 4 years I think. So or maybe 5 years. But anyway, I went ahead and did all that. So now let me just show you something, the type of things that I found here. You see all these things. I'm saying they're products of life, which they are, and several of them there have been DNA tested, and they're 100% human. I'll show you the DNA test in a second. But first I want to show you, just make it quick and easy so you understand what's going on here. Now, that is a fingertip, and it's a mud fossil, and this is how they fossilize on the outside. Now, you see that? I hope you can see that. This sometimes I can't tell what you can see, but that is the surface. I'm going to show you that in a microscope. Now, this was DNA tested. That is a human lung, and that's where it invests in the bottom, and that is the pattern of the fabric of the pleura. And at the top there's an investment. See that red spot? That's what tags it in. That's what holds it from flopping around in your body. On the side is the airway, and that shows up too. That was DNA tested. And there's another one laying around here somewhere. Oh, it's over here. Hold on. This one also was DNA tested. Then there was another one that's too big to move. Now, if you can see that black pattern there, which I think you can see, that is the distal phalanges of a human fingertip, and it's been DNA tested. There's the vein and artery, and the artery sides blow out because there's no restrictions to arteries, and the vein sides don't blow out because there is a restriction to veins. And see, all the way up and down the arterial side, it blows out, and it blows out black blood because it is deoxygenated blood, which is FeO2, and then you have FeO3, which is the red blood. And what happens is, you see in all these rocks, you're going to find let me just show you this, there is veins and arteries. You see those two little spots? Hold on. Let's see if you can see that. See that black dot on the left and the hole on the right there, which is sort of white? That is the vein on the left, which is plugged because it has valves in the veins to stop it from leaking backwards, and that is the arterial side on the right, and this is a vein. A tendon assembly, and on the top here, that little red spot, if you can see that sort of red, that is where the blood is between the tendinous layers to allow it to slide, and it rehydrates. As I'll show you here, you see I put a little water on there. It turns back bloody. Now this was broken open years ago, but when it popped open, it was as bloody as it can get. And I'm going to show you some stuff that people have been sending me. It's amazing. And this, I have nothing special here. You all find it in your backyard. I'll go over the whole idea of it, and what it is it's fossilized in a process I call mud fossilization, and it's because it's surrounded in mud and in wet conditions, literally forever. They just don't deteriorate. They've just been looking in the wrong places, really. So let's go through this, and I'll show you something. Let's look at the microscope. Now, I'll give you an idea of what I do here. There's a bench, I do all this stuff, and underneath there's all kinds of rocks, and I have garages full of rocks. So, and then I have a microscope over there that I do some research over in that area, and that's where I'm going to show you the microscopic shots. Okay, you remember that finger I showed you? This is what it looks like under the microscope. Now, this is feldspar. And feldspar is that little granular looking stuff on there, which actually will erode and become sand and sandstone, or sedimentary stone. Now, I decided that how did these, because I have a head, and I'll show you that is completely turned into sandstone on the surface. We had a CAT scan, and it has been fractured skull and has a knife blade stuck into its head, you know, the pattern of that blade impression. And so I know that the sandstone has to come from skin somehow. So I ended up understanding it's the telluric currents in the earth. And I created some. This is what I created in my own little lab here. And hold on a second. And this is actually pretty good stuff. You see that? Now, that was created with chicken tissue in soils with electrical currents applied to it. And what they don't understand is that the earth in the wet conditions, if the mud is fine enough, here's the key. You need continuously forever wet conditions. You need extremely fine mud. And then you need the correct pHs and so forth. And the particular creature has to be buried alive, or at least the tissue has to be intact and completely compacted and stayed wet forever after that. And then the thing turns into this kind of stuff. Now, the reason it does that is because water filtering through platy polar silicates. Polar silicates means they have a polarity, just like a magnet. As the water passes through, water has a polarity. It's H2O, and it's a polar molecule. That's why you have skin surface on the water. As it passes through that molecular matrix, and it is almost atomic, they're so small. Actually, there's like 2 or 3 atoms together make the molecule. So it's extremely small. As it passes through, it creates electricity. Let's just put it that way. When it does that, it literally plates the surface of skin. And meaning plating, just like it plate a cheap ring. And you know why? Because I dug deeper and I found out that the skin of creatures is the tough part. That separates you from the rest of the world. It's the silicon. There's a lot of silicon, 50 times more dense in your skin than it is in the rest of your bodily tissues. Well, there's some additional silicon in your tendons and so forth, because that's the structural components in your bones. But, you know, the fleshy parts are very little silicon, except the skin, because that protects you and gives you the grippy stuff. So now you got 50 times as much silicon in the skin. Well, what does that mean? Well, when you're in the conditions I'm talking about, wet, polar, you're extremely chemical as a creature. Everything in your body is continuously pushing things back and forth, taking on gases and giving them off, taking on nutrients and giving them off. That's all pH. It's all pH, and it's all ionic bonding and attachments and disassociations of chemicals. And this is my background. So I fully understand this. This is what's going on. It's pushing chemicals back and forth in the water because of the currents. Now, so what does that mean? Well, silicon is Si. Oxygen attaches to the silicon because silicon does not exist in its elemental state. It wants to bond with somebody, and normally in your skin it's doing what it's supposed to do and bonding here and doing this and that. But when it gets into a dead condition, it's looking for somebody to really hook up with and stay bonded to, and that is oxygen. So you end up with Si, silicon. It needs two, oxygens, SiO2. So now you got silicon dioxide, which is sand. Sand is the skin of creatures. It's feldspar. When that erodes off, that turns into the sand that you see on the ocean floor and all everywhere. That's sand. That's the eroded. Now, what happens after that? You end up with something different. I'm going to show you this, because now you got sedimentary stuff that erodes, and then you're going to have some solid stuff underneath. So let's look at the chemistry. Okay, this is the head that started me to prove everything, and at this point it became undeniable. This head was shown on TV, and Scott Walter from Unearthed respectfully said it was nothing more than a carved head. And the guy that Jim Burchell and Arlie Caudle, who was the finder, and Jim Burchell did the research and did a fabulous job, and was just destroyed by this thing that Scott said on TV. Anyway, the head's been CAT scanned, and it has a knife puncture in the head. It's got a fractured skull. We've got the blood, the FeO3 and the FeO2. This is bone black, and there's no question. Every single articulation of this is true. So, but I agree, it's sandstone. So I decided I had to figure out how to turn sandstone, and I did. And I created this from the electric currents in fine muds, and I showed that, or I will show it in this video. So that is proven now that that's the source of feldspar and sandstone. And this, you can see it, it's erodible. It sort of just drifts off into the sand, and then you have sedimentary rock. And I show that too in the spectroscopy and all that business. It's over for these people. It is over. They have to start coming into reality. They cannot walk away from this because they're just delusional. They're literally delusional now if they don't respect this absolute, unimpeachable evidence. All right, now before we go into the chemistry here, I just want to make it clear that this is not my work necessarily. Some of these things I just picked up off the web that are validated. I know but they're not. I didn't actually create this spectral analysis. However, the DNA reports that I have 3 DNA reports, I have 7 CAT scans. All that was on my work. Now, Jesse Garant, who specializes in deep scans, nicest people you will ever meet on the face of this planet, did the scans, the CAT scans, and they have the equipment that can scan racing engines, and that's what they do. And I'll get in a little deeper about Jesse and Fabio and the guys. Absolute wonderful people. And they did it in the interest of science, knowing as scientists that this is important. And I extend my warmest thanks. Now let's look into the chemistry here. Now I mentioned the silicon is in the skin and it erodes. Well, here it is. Sandstone is a sedimentary rock. Mudstone is a firm igneous rock, they call it, but it is an igneous rock. It's the fleshy part of creatures. Limestone is the structural part of creatures, and of course, you know, in the marine limestones, it's different. They're the skeletal clamshells and things like that. But in terrestrial creatures, which I'm dealing with here, it's a different type of limestone, and it's called porphyritic basalt limestones. And they're limestone with all kinds of things like I just showed you in that last picture. They have all that different fibers and things like that. And I can show you more of that. As a matter of fact, let me show you that right now. Hold on one second. Unfortunately, geologists don't understand this at all. This that you're looking at right up here now is what's called fascia. It's a fabric coating of mineral blood of the FeO3 type and the FeO2 type in a matrix fabric, and I will show you living human fabric of fascia. It is exactly the same thing, and this has all been DNA tested anyway. And this is from that lung. This is a human lung. Now that is the coating of the lung. They could call it pleura, fascia, whatever you want to call it. It's a connective tissue mesh that coats all the organs, and every single fiber in your body is coated with a fabric of this fascia. And what that does is it separates everything from everything else, so you're not just one big ball of gush. Otherwise your organs are all mixed together and all this business. So now think of it this way: when you're alive, everything inside you wet, totally wet. What does your blood vessels do? What does this fascia do? Well, it separates everything from everything else. Well, how does it do that? It separates it as a layer of wetness. It says, you stay over that side, I'm staying over this side, and it's wet between us. What happens is if the body stays wet, after you die. This stuff and the tubing in your body, the blood vessels and so forth, is so inorganic. Well, I mean, it's so inert, let's put it that way, that it doesn't interact with anything. So if you're dead and your body stays wet, like in the tidal conditions, like one that Gary Evans found in England, absolutely phenomenal, I'll show you in a second, your body doesn't even know you're dead. The tissues in these blood vessels just keep on saying, well, the guy's still wet, so just keep doing what you're doing. I'm going to show you a lung. It's as old as any of these things. He cracked it on a big old rock, cracked it open, it was full of blood vessels. Every time I call this picture up, it freaks me out. Unbelievable. Now look at this, look at this. This is, it's the lung. There's absolutely zero question. This is the vascular network of the lung. That was the normal airway that brought it in, and then the vessels bring them down to the little air sacs, and what happens is the black part here is literally the deoxygenated blood. It turns black in blood in mud fossils because it's an oxide of iron, and it turns black. And I can show you some other. Well, I don't have to show you. It's what it is. FeO2 blood. It turns black in mud fossils. It's blue in your body. Red blood in your body is red, 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 just like that. Look at this. This is blood that's just gushing out of here. So, I mean, it's just silly to think that this is a rock. And you know, I got to be honest with you, Yale still refuses to consider these anything but rocks. I presented them with DNA and CAT scans and specimens. Well, I hadn't presented them, they won't accept them. They tell me, no, they're nothing but rocks. I've looked at your videos and I've done all this. I don't think they're doing that. I just think they're ignoring it. So, you know, but the poor kids are going to school paying tons of money, and you know, this is absolute, no question that it's evidence that they should be looking at. And, you know, it's sort of, well, it's hard for me to understand how they can not deal with this. And as a matter of fact, the guy that's been saying that this is not real for years now has just apparently realized it is real, and he authored a paper about it. Derek Briggs down at Yale. So he apparently has come around to realize this is real because he put his name on a paper about it. So sooner or later this will get realized. And the problem is, this is human tissue. This is not, he's got a crab or a jellyfish or something that they found, a soft-bodied thing. But this is different. This is our history. This is, I have giant human DNA, and that's what I believe why they won't look at it, because it is giants, there's no question. And they're DNA tested, 3 DNA tests. 2 of them are giants, and they are enormous. So I've been fighting with them for years, and you know, I have a whole series of emails going back and forth, and as long as 6 months ago he still denied that any of this stuff was real. You know, and saying that the DNA must not be right and this can't be correct and everything's wrong. But I don't think he's right. Well, I mean, I know he's not right. I just think he's kind of, I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but it has to be seen. It has to be seen. All right, I'm not showing you this to show off, and even if I was, who cares? But I did this for my whole life. This is the kind of stuff I did, and you know, and it was serious, and I did a lot of it, and I studied all the different bonding and all this stuff, and I refer to this stuff all the time because this shows the chemical structures of all kinds of things and how the orbitals are laid out, and this has not changed. This is all quantum mechanics, and I mean, it's deep. And you don't get this and understand this and get this deep into it and then forget it. So all I'm getting at is this is serious stuff, and I did this for a long time, and I did all of the stuff that goes along with it. I did all the, you know, all the calculations and the chemistry and how the heat changes and everything, all the electricity. So anyway, I do have the background to be discussing this. So anyway, so I'm showing off. Who cares? All right, now that you got a little chemistry going on here, let's go back to our sedimentary stone. Then we have chunks of stone. Sandstone, it erodes off of the skin. What is it eroding? It's eroding the silicon. What is the silicon? It's the red stuff. See up here, Si silicon. So you see all the sandstone silicones here. We after that we get down to the hard. Well, it's not hard, but it's the solid stuff under this erodible stuff, which I showed you, and I made that in the lab. It's nothing special at all. Now, after that, what happens? you don't have as much silicon down here in the mudstone, which is the fleshy and the organs, and you have some silicon because the limestone is collagen type 1, which is your bone matter, and there's silicon in there. It's a structural component. Now, then you go into, you see how these are almost all identical, because they're all from the same source. Then you come up to here, and what do you have here? You're missing a calcium. You see Ca, calcium? There's no calcium in sandstone because that's down in where your bones are. All you did was leach off your skin. So there's no more calcium left. Well, on your skin there's no calcium to speak of. And then it's all in your bones and in your structural part of your body. Same thing here. Here's your calcium again, very little calcium. Anyway, the chemistry is not deniable. And neither is the rest of it. I'll show you some other stuff. Alright, this is going to be a lab discussion with the director of the lab that did the DNA tests, and I'm going to show you some other stuff as he's speaking. You can only get a certain amount of base pairs normally?
Right, usually 100 to 200 tops.
This is the test.
The DNA is so fragmented.
There's 3 tests.
The degradation, with all the, the years.
He was the only one in the country willing to do this.
But I was able to, locate these primers
because it was giant humans.
That this group had success with, and that seemed like the best option. And they,
this is on the web. It's available to anyone. I sent this to Professor Briggs.
Essentially amplify all types of vertebrates. So, not just human, but any kind of vertebrate life form. And so they were sort of a universal type of fit for these samples, because we don't know obviously what the samples consist of. So the sequence that came back, and it was roughly for each of these fragments about 100 base pairs.
That's huge.
In the database, and they matched with the the human mitochondrial. There's 2 regions of the mitochondria. One is called the D, like the letter D is in dog.
It is right there.
And then the other one, I believe, is for cytochrome B gene.
He's exactly right.
Mitochondria has several different genes that it consists of, but these primers were specific for those areas of the mitochondrial genome. So, so I, considering where we, started a couple months ago, that's, those are nice results to have.
Yeah. No, that was over a year ago.
And now with DNA sequencing.
Well, long over a year ago. And this was presented to Professor Briggs, and he denied that it's reliable.
In the human,
it's 100% certain. All right, I showed you the fascia that was on that lung. This is fascia that's found in the ground. They call it chromatite or something like that. But it's exactly the same fascia. All right, this is that exact same fascia again. This is in a human, and this is the investment flap of the fascia. Look at this architecture. I'm going to show you another one right now that's in a Mudfossils. All right, you should be able to see that. Now, of course, it's in this architecture right here like that. But that is that same flap, and that is going up to attach into the fascia of the rest of the system, and to hold this piece from flopping around, whatever it was. It's meat of some sort. And you can actually see the black elastin fibers in here if you look real careful. I don't know if you'll be able to see those or not, but under the microscope, this is fascia. This is the same stuff you see on your meat. And that's what coats, and it actually wraps and comes down to the tendon stalk and holds these things, the muscle fibers, so that it pulls against your bones and through the enthesis points. All right, this is a fingertip that we had CAT scanned, and it's part of a hand, and I'll show you some more of that. Now, this is the CAT scan that was done, and that was done by Jesse Garant and Associates out in Michigan, and they're up in Canada. Wonderful people. This is the bed of the nail, and during the rest of the shots you could see the apical tuft and all the different little the pads of the hand and of the finger and the blood vessels and all that business. It's 3D color, all that. Now, this is the actual hand that all this stuff came from. This particular, I have all kinds of stuff here. It's just phenomenal. But here's what the hand is. Now, if you look at this carefully, and I hope you can see this, because this is a picture of a picture and a video of a video. Now, this brownish looking stuff, and if you can see this, it almost looks like somebody plastered that on there, and this thing that's plastered looking on here, that is literally the tendinous material that, well, I don't know if it's tendinous, but it's a different mat that's on the palm of your hand, and if you feel it, you'll feel it. That's the bumper that's on your hand. It's made that way. Now, if you lay your hand back flat like this and lay it out, you're going to see that rise is right there, which is this. And this is a left hand, and there was the left thumb that I showed you before. And we have the fingers, and we have some knuckles, and that is what it is. And that is the stuff that's coming around here, and the thumb goes off this way. So we have all that stuff, and then I have another hand. Now this thing here is 3 feet wide, the hand. So that would bring us up to like a 50-foot person. And that is small. You see this? Look at this. This will rattle your cage. You see these are up ridges. You see these little groups of holes. You see these little pouches between them. This is skin. That is a ridge of skin in your finger. These are 20 feet tall or so, or however tall they are, and that is the ridges of skin in your fingerprints of a giant. And I will show you the evidence to support that. Alright, let's start with this look. You see the same little groups of holes in between and the ridges. Now I'm going to show you what it looks like in the anatomy and an anatomical drawing. You see what it is? There's the skin ridges, there's the little pockets, there's the little groups of holes. It is what it is, and that is skin. Alright, this is hard to see, but I'll show you the big picture of the finger in a second. But these are those little pockets. And this is the ridges of the finger tip. And this right here, you see this rise up here that there's nothing, it's flat? That is, this came off of a big finger, and I don't know which finger it is. But that little piece is that rise up on your own finger that comes right from the crease, and then it touches up to where the fingerprints begin. That's this rise right here of my finger would be over in that little tiny corner over there, and then going up into my fingerprints. And here's those same fingerprints here. Now this was DNA tested. This was DNA tested, 100% human, and it came off of a 200-foot giant. And I'll show you the finger that it came off of. We had to take it off of here and smash it off of there and get deep inside to get the DNA. Alright, the DNA tested fingerprint that I just showed you came off of this fingertip. That's the fingernail. That's literally the fingernail, and that it is absolutely pristinely taken care of. And on the other side of this is a regular fingerprint, just like you see in a post office hanging up on a wall of some criminal, because it's just flawless. As you saw, you know, it's a little eroded. The silicon and stuff and some of the clays have worked their way out of the surface, but very little. And deep inside, as I mentioned before, the blood stays sequestered because it's been chelated, they call it. I call it chelated. They call it chelated. Anyway, that's the story of mud fossils. This is our history. This is reality. It was always considered myth and laughed about, and academics really are very they're apoplectic about this. They're very upset, and because it destroys the things that they've been saying, and now they're taking a posture of protecting themselves instead of working to for the good of everybody. So we understand the reality of life, and especially for the students. I mean, the money they're paying, they should at least get these people to look at things. But I don't know, whatever happens, happens. But I thought it was like a fiduciary duty, which is like a legal responsibility, but they don't think they have any of that responsibility. So they can make up an opinion, and even in the fact of really undeniable factual evidence. And when I looked it up, and that's literally considered clinically delusional, and it's a mental illness. So, no, listen to this now. This just occurred to me. I've discovered literally everything's wrong. Geology's 100% wrong. These things are in space too. They come down. The meteorites hit the Earth have veins and arteries in them. Comet 67P is a biological remnant, and this is undeniable. And even they know that it's all organic materials up there. They totally were gone, lost. Two biggest words in science are totally unexpected. Because they don't understand all these things are from life. They're not just old chunks of things that fell back together and started hearts beating and creating music and going out and machine gun another. No, there's a whole different creation story, and I think it's time to look at that in a little better light. So that's all I have to say, and really, I do have one other thing to say. That academia has treated religious people and people that have deep faith and conviction of things like this that now are proven. They've treated those people as cults, really, as people that are delusional and thinking that things are real that aren't real. Now, knowing that now this is real and that the stories that were told were quite likely very accurate, and I have more evidence that supports literally Jesus exactly is who he said he was. I have chemistry about that too. That's going to really put him over the top. Now, think about this. If I present all of this evidence, this absolutely factual, you can't deny it. It's the academics are delusional, especially Derek Briggs, a professor at Yale. He's just 100% delusional. Now, in my opinion, all this is my opinion, I could be wrong. Now, so he's presented with facts. It says if you're presented with facts and you can't accept them, that's delusional. Now, so let's start with that one. Now listen to this. Academia forces the kids to pay them tons of money and says if you don't pay us, you're not going to be successful in life because you're just going to go out there and toil in the mines. But you have to pay us and we'll validate your existence and then you can go out and make a bunch of money. So they force them to give them money. Go and mortgage your house, go and take on loans and all this stuff, and they do. And then they say you come here and sit down, be quiet, and don't start a fuss. If you object and say that we're not right, then we're going to fail you and you're going to be destroyed in your life. That's pretty hard to fight against, because if you say, well, what about this? I'm telling you, they will put you in a box. Trust me, they cannot see this with their eyes. Now, so here you got, give us your money. Sit down, shut up, don't say a word. If you do, you're in trouble and we're going to fail you. So, and if for some reason you leave here saying that we're wrong, we'll destroy you in your career. So, then I say to myself, what is a cult? And it fits every single, and they're delusional on top of that because they can't accept the reality of, and everybody knows that they're teaching stuff that's just insane, copper chisels and this and that, just all silly stuff about our past, and accepting it as reality. So, you have a cult. It's a cult system. It's got to be dismantled. And the one thing that you have to do, that in my opinion, it's all my opinion, I would say that, and the professors are, the administrators are at fault, really. And the professors just have to live under that system. So really what I would say is that every school that is a for-pay school has to have an alternative research department. And anybody can bring up physical theories and evidence. It's just some mind thing that says, oh boy, I think this or I think that. No, that's not going to work. There would be some kind of a little panel that would accept this or not accept that. And then you would have some reality to go against the things that are being taught, which are not right. And my university will have all new information because there's literally nothing right. Space is wrong. planetary stuff is wrong, geology is wrong, the Big Bang is wrong. It's all wrong, and that's all proven now with mud fossils. Plus, history's wrong. And Velikovsky was the guy that was maligned and destroyed, and he was the guy that was right. So Velikovsky is the guy that you should look into and look up Worlds in Collision, and it's on the YouTube channel, and it shows a Stonehenge structure in the front. And on minute 1 and minute 5, you will learn the history of our planet that's been suppressed. And he got that history from the actual writers of the history, the actual eyewitnesses, not a blog. He did this like 1940, 1950. He actually went to every country in the world, literally, every culture. He cross-referenced all the stories and the dates and what was written and what was seen in the skies and what happened to the Earth. And the Earth was wrenched. Venus appeared in the sky in those days, 3,500 years ago. Look all this up. We've really been misled is what the whole bottom line to this is. Giants are our ancestors. It's being denied by Yale, Professor Briggs, and all the academics. They can't, they're not going to allow creationism, and creationism is now, in my mind, a literal fact. You know, I don't accept every statement in the Bible, but I certainly have no possibility that the Big Bang is correct and that evolution is the way dust became us. So that's it. Have a nice day.